All right, we're back. We're here with George Hunt from, what's your website? Is it thebigbadbank.com?
Yes, thebigbadbank.com.
Now, George, I'm really pleased to have you on here today because this show is going to, I guess, hopefully be about knowledge and solutions, and you have a great deal of knowledge, having been personally involved in the Wilderness Congress project back in the 80s. And you personally have met Morris Strong and Rockefeller. So it ties in good with our show because Morris Strong is Canadian and Rockefeller is an alien. No, I mean American. And I think it's important for people to understand that this is so tied into one big knot. I mean, there is no American political problem that doesn't touch Canada and vice versa, and it is all because of these people. Now, if you could just possibly touch on how you met Rockefeller and Strong and Rothschild and that, and then maybe tell us a little bit of what took place at the Wilderness Congress meetings.
Sure can. To start, my son Peter was killed in the wilderness areas in 1986, and I was feeling pretty sad. It was around the anniversary of his death, and there was an advertisement that the World Wilderness Congress was coming to Denver, and they showed pictures of reindeer and stuff. Well, my youngest son, John, was very depressed about losing his brother, so I decided I'd go to the Fourth World Wilderness Congress to get my son a job, repairing Arctic huts and things like that out in the wilderness. Well, when I got there at this environmental congress, I noticed that David Rockefeller, Edmund de Rothschild, the Treasury Secretary of the U.S., the head of the IMF, the head of the World Bank, all of those people, UN people, lots of UN people, were at this meeting. I said, what are all these financial people doing here? Well, it turned out that the meeting was a secret meeting that had been ordained by Edmund de Rothschild, that certain environmental and sustainable development questions would start to be raised in the United Nations to eventually give Rothschild and Rockefeller and their nest control over all the world's waters, all the world's food, all the world's money through a World Conservation Bank that they put into motion at that meeting. And I saw what was going on, and I was threatened by David Rockefeller to keep my mouth shut or I'd regret it. I had luncheon with the Rothschilds, expressed my concerns at the table, and they didn't seem to recognize that I was a person. They just brushed me off. So then at the meeting that I went to that Edmund de Rothschild had called, I heard us referred to as the cannon fodder by these elite people, referred to us as the cannon fodder that unfortunately inhabits the earth. And they didn't give me a chance to protest what they were doing at their meeting, so that's when I decided, God, they owe me one. And since then, I have done quite a few things to spoil their plans.
Yeah, and see, you are one of those rare people who saw what was going on and said this is completely wrong.
That's right. All the
most people would just put their tail between their legs and go back home. So my hat's off to you on that point. The other thing that I'd like you to touch on is the absolute hypocrisy of these people. These people, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Strongs and their nest, are the very people that go out of their way to hurt the environment while telling us that we're the problem. We, the cannon fodder, are the problem, not them. And then I think Morris Strong, who is the New Age guru, I guess, of the Green Movement, him and was it Rockefeller or someone else, went to try to usurp the usage of that great water basin in Colorado.
Yep.
So if you could touch on what took place there.
Okay, Morris Strong was hailed as Mr. Environment at the United Nations meeting that I went to in 1987. 200 miles south, Mr. Environment was involved with the Belzbergs of Canada, with the Bronfman family of Canada, with the head of the EPA, the one that established the EPA laws, William Ruckelshaus, and a few other stockholders. They owned American Water Development, and they were secretly trying to overwhelm Colorado laws to go into the aquifer and deplete it by sending water to El Paso, L.A., who knows when, at $6,000 an acre foot. He was going to send 200,000 acre feet out of that aquifer. Now, the aquifer is a huge one. It's got about 2 billion acre feet of water that's going through it to create the Santa Fe, or the Rio Grande. The Arkansas River starts there. And there was another river, too. Let's see. Colorado River? No. But I blew the whistle on what he was doing. And it was such I sent videotapes out to all the farmers and organized them. I said, this guy is going to pump 200,000 acre feet out of your aquifer. What's going to happen? And without any negatives, they said, this thing will ruin our farmlands. So how do these United Nations officials are such hypocrites and liars? Morris Strong threw out to prove that there is global warming. So these scientists, these lackeys, they took what he wanted, that is to fight global warming, and they worked backwards so that they could verify their data.
Yeah, in other words, the scientists were given a directive to show us how we can get to a global warming situation, and then we can use that. And that's exactly what the IPCC is. It's nothing more than a political arm.
That's right. That's right. Then Maurice was found out because I alerted the legislature that he was involved in an aquifer law that would have benefited his plan. And they unanimously challenged him and refused that amendment, and he had to flee from Colorado back to Canada. He said it was just because he gave up his presidency of AWDI, but he was marked by Colorado for trying to overcome their environment laws.
Yes, and Morris Strong also, and the Clintons and the Bushes and all the rest of the gang were all involved in. But the two main players were Morris Strong and Al Gore were involved. I'm not sure if you're in knowledge of this, but molten metals, which was some other environmental thing that they got involved in.
Okay.
And it's the same basic story as what you are talking about, the aquifer. So now you have Morris Strong and Al Gore fleecing the public for funds and getting all kinds of government grants. And in the end, they both cashed in insider trading and took off and left all the investors holding the bag. And yet you don't read this stuff in the newspaper.
I think we're coming up to a break, or we might be on the break here, guys. So I guess we'll catch this on the other side. Welcome back to Canada Live on OrionTalkRadio.com. And we were, just before we got cut off by the break, I believe we were talking about these aquifers and this earth camp.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so these...
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, so these this earth camp, I've never heard of this. What is this Earth Camp?
In Crestone, Colorado, over the aquifer, is it's a town that's been taken over by Morris Strong and his wife Honey, and they have established a global religion there. They say that their place, which is on the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, is the place where the Eastern religions meet the Western religions, and they have a place in a temple where the matrix is, where Father God is going to mate with Mother Earth and bring forth the Christ child. That's kind of strange. I talked to a Catholic priest there, and he said, "Well, we just recite the Lord's Prayer backwards, and we pray that the place here will be blessed by the Pope. In fact, they're already beginning to call it the Vatican of the United States. It's a very cruel group of people they have there. I have heard that they have had a sacrifice of a human being there.
This is the Baca Ranch?
Yeah, the Baca Ranch. And it's infested with devils. And Morris Strong is the leader of that group. And he, I think that he himself is possessed of earth spirits. They call it a druid nowadays. He was presented, Morris Strong was presented to David Rockefeller when he was only 18. And Rockefeller gave him the job of taking the United Nations to an international body, legislative body. That was Morris Strong's decree. And he's doing it. He, let's see, what was I going to say? One of the tricks that he was going to use was taking mineral lands and messing up who owned them and so on, and then going to Nature Conservancy or the other global environment people to have them support what he was promulgating. So he's used mineral land rights deals to make millions of dollars. I tried to penetrate Nature Conservancy to see if $8 million that I couldn't account for in the deal they made, one of the deals, and I found out that I'm not permitted to go into a not-for-profit organization, and they don't even audit those organizations. So I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, the trust and the charities are really the drivers, the financial drivers behind all this stuff, yes?
Yes, sir. You got it. World Wildlife Fund, all those stuff.
And what I think is important for people to understand is that, you know, all those good folks, and they are basically good people who have been caught up in this propaganda about the earth being in such a dismal state in that. Mm-hmm. Those people have got to understand who is running the show. It has nothing to do with the environment.
I tried that. And all
I know it's tough, isn't it?
It's tough, man. You can't talk to New Age or those guys.
Well brainwashed, are they not?
Hey, your listeners can learn my whole history, how I got into this, by going to my site, thebigbadbank.com, and look at my Utah 1991. It's rather long, but it's broken into little sections, and they can see all of the things that I'm trying to relate today.